Oh, here we are. So for those who aren't aware, we're actually on to part 3 of this how to meditate back to basics little guide, and the idea is that after this we have a little bit more confidence on how we can build our own practice, understanding what it is we're actually trying to do and how we go about it. Because there is a lot of, there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's lots of different types of meditation. So this is really setting out the stall for mindfulness meditation as I know it. We've looked at the definition of mindfulness, which is something that we will always come back to. This is the knowing what's happening while it's happening without preference. And we looked at setting our posture, and the key points from there is making sure that we feel comfortable, that we're able to relax our body, so we're not forcing ourselves into a particular position, but we're also having some alertness with the body as well. So we're respecting the practice, so we're not slumped all the way over or offering ourselves to drowsiness too easily. I like thinking about the body being a mountain. So now we're very firmly fixed to the ground and we feel solid, but the mind is open and free like the sky around the mountain. And we looked at the power of intention and motivation. And the intention helps us to set a direction for the practice, knowing what we're doing. We're going to be doing a mindfulness meditation for 20 minutes, for example. And the aim is to stay focused on the breath. And that might be different if we're doing a body scan. So we know what we're doing, we're setting the direction of the meditation. And then we're asked to call in a motivation, which is where we silently ask ourselves, why? Why am I here today? What is it I'm looking for? And we may have an answer to that, we may not know. We may have a few different answers, but sometimes there's some insight into what can bubble up when we ask ourselves that question. So we looked at posture, intention, motivation, and then we looked at settling. And this is where we bring close attention to breathing as a way of giving the mind something simple to focus on. It gives us something to come back to once we're distracted. And by building a nice even rhythm of breath, we're allowing the body and the nervous system to also relax. And it helps to settle some of the gross distraction in the mind. So we will still obviously have mind activity going on, but this is just to bring that in a little bit. Then we looked at grounding last week. Specifically, we did a body scan, and that's essentially what we're doing in the grounding, is bringing more awareness into the physical sensations of being here and being in this space. So once we've done those parts of the practice, we're invited to rest. This is the heart of the practice. And resting in meditation is where we really drop the idea of meditation. We drop all concepts. We do our best to not do. We come away from doing. Now, this seems quite straightforward, but it doesn't take long, as we are all very aware during a meditation, before the mind picks up some energy, picks up some momentum, and starts getting pulled into thinking. And it's almost before we know it, before we're even aware we're doing it, we're often thinking about something, maybe something that happened during the day, something that we're thinking about happening later. We might be in a form of judgment about what's happening right now, not directly experiencing it, but sort of stuck to some sort of mental formation or judgment about what's happening now. So in this resting phase, we're invited to completely let go of any striving, let go of any doing, let go of any techniques. But because of the nature of the mind and the strength that it has to pull us away, we offer ourselves a support, what we call a support, and it's sometimes referred to as an anchor. Now, this can range from anything from the breath to the body to sounds. It can be any sense perception or any internal focus. We can bring our mind to a visualization or some kind of mantra or something. But in mindfulness, some of the more common ones are the breath and sound. And we also, as you know, do, as we did last week, we do the body. Now, we use that slightly differently. So, for example, the breath, and we talked about the breath with settling. Now, in the settling phase of the meditation, this is the sort of opening the door to meditation, we bring quite a focused energy on the breath. It's very deliberate, where if we're talking about awareness like a torchlight, this is on a narrow beam. So it takes a little bit of effort, takes a little bit of energy, and it's very much a doing. We're doing a focus on the breath. When we come into resting, when we use the breath as a support, it's a much lighter focus. So we come out of the settling phase where we focus on the breath, we come into the body, and then we're invited to open our awareness. So we open our attention, so it's very light and loose, but we use the breath and awareness of the breath as a bit of a keel, as a bit of an anchor, just something to refer to, which helps us to recognize when the mind has wandered, because if we're not aware of the breath, then the mind has wandered. And it also gives us something to come back to as soon as we notice that the mind has wandered. Now, the analogies I've heard for this technique is a bit like sitting on the riverbank. Once we've entered the resting phase of the practice, we're sitting on the riverbank and we're watching the river flow past. And the river can be thoughts, it can be sensations, it can be any sense perception. Can be just what is happening in this moment. Now, the tendency of the mind, as I've said before, is to get hooked into a particular thought and start thinking, and we do this unconsciously and we don't know we're doing it until we've been washed down the river a little bit. And then we go, I'm meant to be meditating and I'm away thinking about the shopping or what somebody said to me or trying to finish a conversation that I had earlier. So we are just encouraged just to let go of that thought, to expand, open, become aware of the breath again. And this is like climbing back on the riverbank. And we then start to observe again. We start to notice what's happening. We hold the breath at the center, so we've got a central focus, but we do so in a light way. And depending on where we're at mentally, if we're emotionally challenged, if we're having a hard time, it might be that we're in and out the river every second or two, or we're in the river and we're gone for 5 or 10 minutes. But the emphasis here is that there's no problem with that at all. For starters, we can't actually control it. If we observe very closely what the mind does, it actually pulls us into that quite automatically. And this is one of the insights we will get through regular practice, is the mind tends to do its own thing. So what we're actually doing is when we notice, when we have that moment, that is mindfulness. That is knowing what's happening while it's happening. So we're very aware that for the last 5 minutes, I've been thinking about whatever. It doesn't matter what the content is. We've been lost in that thought, that thinking process. But in this moment, we're aware of that. We're actually awake. We've woken up to the trance of thinking. the magnetic, automatic nature of thoughts. And from a sort of long-term point of view, it's this process that actually gives us some of the benefits of mindfulness. We're releasing ourselves from the habitual attachment to thinking, because some of the stuff we've discussed before is the nature of these thoughts. They tend to be not particularly nice. Sometimes they're good, but the mind has a tendency to bring up stuff that it doesn't like more so than stuff it does like. So we can, if we're unconsciously attached to thinking throughout the day in our lives, we can end up being pulled into discomfort or suffering when we don't have to. There is another way. It takes practice and patience, but we get to know the nature of the mind. We get to become more aware, and we can start to have a little bit more choice or autonomy in the thought processes that we invest in. So that's one of the perks of doing this process. Now, another key element to this, and we'll go more into this next week, is looking at the attitudes of mindfulness. And it's really important that we bring some softness, some compassion, some understanding to this process, because we will get distracted, quite frequently. And if we are beating ourselves up for that, or we're judging ourselves for it, then we're going to have a pretty tough time. So the encouragement here is to bring kindness to the forefront, is to bring a sense of compassion, understanding that this is what minds do, and we're not here to stop that. We're not here to empty the mind. We're just going to start to get better at not buying into it so readily. And there's some power and benefits in that. The other thing is the content of our thoughts can vary from moment to moment, from day to day, and it can be quite enticing. We can get pulled into all sorts of stories, and sometimes, if we're having insights or some revelation, it can be really enticing and tempting to investigate and get into thinking mode. Now, the instruction here is to let go of that. Let go of that temptation to solve a problem. Let go of that temptation to work something out, because that's all part of that automatic thinking process. And we get better at letting that go as well. Remembering that we're knowing what's happening while it's happening without preference. So we're not invested in thinking good thoughts. We're not pushing away bad thoughts. There's no discrimination whether the experience is good or bad. It's simply noticing what's happening. So that pretty much wraps up the little talk. I'm just going to check through what I've written and make sure that I haven't forgotten anything. Yeah, so lastly, I will add that we can be aware of a number of things during a meditation, a number of things that are present, any of the sense perceptions. If we think about how we actually experience the world, we only ever experience sense perceptions or thoughts about them. And this is the raw material of experience. And it's not to say it's not very rich, but it's important to notice that this is all we experience. We're only experiencing the sense perceptions through the world, through sense of smell, taste, touch, sight, hearing. So we've got this alive kind of symphony of the senses playing. And then we have this other part of it, which is what the mind says about these perceptions. It might be a form of conscious commentary and labeling processes, or some kind of deliberate thinking, or it may be unconscious, maybe much more deep rooted in terms of beliefs which drive certain behaviors. But all of this is happening within our sense perceptions and thinking. So it's just something to be aware of, because a lot of the problems that we struggle with seem a lot more real and independent than that experience of the senses and thinking. But there's nothing we can experience which isn't one of those things. That isn't the five senses, or our thoughts and imagination about it. And that can be quite liberating to feel that. So we will get into the meditation. Has anyone got any questions about what I've said? It's pretty straightforward. We've done some of this before. Okay, so I can't hear anyone saying anything, so I'll get into the practice. Just one more thing. There's no wrong turns in a meditation. The mind will often add criticism or find fault with what we're doing. It'll tell us that we're not very good meditators. It'll make us feel like we're too distracted, or it'll tell us that we're doing it wrong. But all we have to do in that moment is notice I'm having the thought that I'm doing this wrong. And we get some awareness around it. We get some space around the thought. I'm having the thought that whatever, I'm noticing this. So if you'd like to make yourselves comfortable, guys, and Georgie. So we're looking at the posture, just reviewing the posture. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular. We're not looking for some kind of perfect posture. We're looking to feel into the body and find ease. Can we find ease in the body? Is it stable? Picturing the body like a mountain resting on the ground. Sometimes just softly growing from our seats offers some straightness to the spine, some space and some ease. And the eyes can be open or closed. We allow the sound of the bell just to bring us inwards. Bringing our attention inwards, allowing that sound to meet us. And our intention for this practice is to practice getting to know this resting and support process of meditation. Putting it into practice. And any other intention you have, any personal intentions for being here. Bringing to mind your motivation for coming here today. This is very personal. It may be obvious, it may be more subtle. There's no wrong answer to this question. And then we let go of our intention and motivation, trusting that the practice will follow its own course and that we'll have the experience that we need from this without forcing it. So letting go of the intention and motivation and bringing our awareness like a torchlight onto the breathing body. Noticing the breath, how it appears to us. Getting closer to the breath. And we may notice the breath on the nose, in the throat, the chest, the belly. So wherever breathing is most obvious to us, we focus our attention here. And we do our best to hold our awareness on this particular part of the body. And noticing what it's like to breathe in. Noticing what it's like to breathe out. Where possible, resisting any temptation to get lost in thinking or thoughts. And committing to this process of observing the breath moment by moment. Noticing if the breath is short, if the breath is long, if it's smooth or rough. If it's easy and free or tight and uncomfortable. And to aid the mind to settle to some degree, we can soften and deepen the breath. Relaxing the body and receiving a deeper, more gentle breath. And lengthening the exhale. So just paying a bit more attention to the exhalation. And to help the mind to settle, we're invited to count to 3, 4, or 5 on the inhale, and then to match that with the exhale. So all we're thinking about now is counting, and we're noticing the sensations of the breath. And if counting is difficult or distracting, then perhaps visualizing a wave coming up the beach and then falling away again, just to help us build that nice, even, balanced flow of breathing. Just checking in again with the posture, making sure we feel relaxed, alert, and letting go of any forcing the breath, any counting, and just allowing the breath to return to its natural rhythm. And here we pay more attention to the sensations of the out breath, noticing the natural relaxing properties of the out breath. How the body wants to let go. How the chest and the belly soften. And we sink into our seats or positions just that little bit more with each out breath. Deepening that state of presence. That sense of having a body, being in this space. And we can bring our awareness to the lower body, feeling any contact. Maybe it's our bottoms on the chairs, maybe the weight of our legs and feet on the ground. Noticing the stillness of the ground or whatever we're resting on. Noticing anything that might be touching the lower body, clothing, any objects. Noticing any sensations within the lower body. Might be a tingling or a tightness. Maybe a sense of flow. And as always with the body scan, we can move our awareness to somewhere that feels better if we're being asked to notice something that we'd rather not notice. Always feeling free to navigate this practice in your own way. Bringing an awareness now to the whole upper body, the torso, the shoulders and the arms, the weight of the hands. Sensations of touch, sensations within the body, within the hands. Just open and receiving whatever sensations are here, whatever's happening, without judgment or expectation. And lastly, inviting awareness to the area of the head and the neck and the face. Allowing our awareness to light up any sensations in the area of the face or the head, the scalp. Just noticing any tingling, any tightness, any spaciousness. So we've settled with the breath. We've become aware of the body resting on the ground like a mountain, aware of the space around the body like the sky. And here we're invited to rest. Here we're just simply observing without any expectation, not seeking any particular experience. Opening up to that symphony of the senses. Sense of touch, sense of sound, and sense of sight, Even with the eyes closed, the sense of sight is active. There's an awareness of vision. An awareness also of the breath. And as the mind wanders into thinking, if the mind gets lost, we become momentarily unconscious, then as soon as we become aware again, as soon as we're conscious, we gently and kindly bring our awareness back into this open, spacious field with the breath at the very center of it. So we're aware of breathing, aware of the spacious qualities of the breath. And we're aware passively, so we're open and receiving the experience of the breath. We might still be aware of the body as well. So aware of sensations, the sensations of breathing. Just checking in with the body. Is it relaxed and open, solid and free? Have we allowed tension to creep back into the neck and the shoulders? Can we breathe some space into those areas? And can we notice when the mind is involved, when thinking has taken over? If we've lost our centeredness with the breath? We just let go of whatever that distraction is with total acceptance. Noticing the difference between being lost in thought and being aware and conscious and present. And coming back to that openness of the breath, to the receiving of the breath. Noticing whenever the mind wanders into thinking, using that that moment to be mindful, to notice what's happening. There's no wrong turns. Each moment serves to help us to become more aware of what's happening. Each distraction and moment lost in thought is another opportunity to become mindful, to become conscious and aware. An opportunity to notice if the mind is making an enemy of this experience in some way. It's not good enough, that we're not good enough, we're too this or that. And simply noticing that that's just another thought, just another object of thought. And we can let that dissolve as we return to this next in-breath and next out-breath. And as we approach the end of this meditation practice, so it's traditional to offer a dedication. So we might bring a little smile to the lips, maybe a hand to the chest, and just sending out any wishes of peace, of joy, of freedom, sending that out to the people that we know and love, and to anyone we don't know who may be in particular need of some peace or kindness. Maybe they're in need of a smile themselves. And allowing that to shine back on us and our own experience. So however this practice has gone, we can let go of the past and bringing our awareness back into this moment, into the sound of the bell, signaling the end of the practice. You may wish to take a moment to just gather yourself together, perhaps opening the eyes, starting to move the body in a way that feels good and respectful. Might just be fingers and toes. Might be a little stretch.